Marcus Kane was a ghost in his own life, and he liked it that way. Nobody at the gym in Denver, Colorado had any idea that the tired-looking single dad folding laundry between sets used to be able to kill a man 11 different ways before breakfast. They thought they were humiliating a soft, out-of-shape father who couldn't stand up for himself. They had no idea the man they pushed to the edge had spent a decade in one of the most feared units in the U.S. military. This is the story of what happened when they finally found out. Marcus was 36. The lines around his eyes told a story most people never bothered to read. To the parents at his daughter's school, to the cashiers at the grocery store, he was just another exhausted single dad in a faded hoodie and a ball cap pulled low. His days ran like clockwork: pack lunches, drop his 6-year-old daughter Ruby at first grade, put in long hours as a freelance logistics consultant, keep the house from falling apart. 3 years earlier, his wife had died suddenly from an aggressive illness, and somewhere in the grief that followed, Marcus had packed his old life into a steel trunk and locked it in the attic. Medals, uniforms folded with razor-sharp creases, a decade of memories he never talked about. For 10 years, Marcus had been an operator in one of the Navy's most elite special warfare units. He'd survived brutal training that broke most men in weeks. He'd served in war zones most people only saw on the news. He knew what it felt like to have another man's life fade out under his hands, and he knew the metallic taste of fear better than most people know their own name. But his daughter didn't need a warrior. She needed a dad who could braid her hair badly and make pancakes shaped like dinosaurs on Sunday mornings. So Marcus buried the operator. He became soft-spoken, patient, unassuming, invisible. His only outlet was a warehouse gym on the edge of the city called Ironforge Athletics. He wasn't there to socialize. He was there to keep the demons quiet. Every evening at 6, right after picking Ruby up from her after-school program, he'd bring her along and let her sit in the manager's glass-walled office with her coloring books while he trained. The owner, a gruff ex-firefighter named Walter Briggs, didn't mind one bit. Marcus kept his workouts simple and brutal: heavy deadlifts, strict pull-ups, long rounds on the heavy bag in the back corner. He wore thick sweatshirts even in the heat, hiding corded muscle and a jagged scar that ran up his left shoulder. To anyone watching, he just looked like a heavy-set dad trying to sweat out his stress. Then came Blake and Brody Sullivan. If Marcus was a ghost, the Sullivan twins were a flashing neon sign. 24 years old, trust fund kids who turned their family's real estate money into a local social media brand. They were genuinely athletic, both black belts, both covered in matching tattoos, both dressed in custom compression gear built for the camera. They didn't just work out, they performed. Every session came with ring lights, a tripod, and thousands of followers watching live. Walter couldn't stand them, but their premium memberships and their online buzz brought in new customers, so he tolerated the noise. Marcus avoided them entirely. Years of training had wired him to spot threats on instinct, and the twins were exactly the kind of reckless, undisciplined danger he'd learned to steer clear of. Boys playing at being dangerous men. The first spark happened on a Tuesday evening. Marcus was short on time. He'd promised Ruby ice cream if she finished her homework, and she was already pressed against the office glass waving a completed worksheet. He walked to the one open squat rack, which the twins had quietly claimed by draping their gym bags over the second barbell. "Excuse me," Marcus said. "You guys using this bar?" Blake, the older twin by 4 minutes, turned and looked him over: the baggy hoodie, the worn sneakers, the slouched shoulders. "Yeah, old man. We need it to hold our bags, better lighting over here. I just need one set, 3 minutes." Brody snorted, adjusting his phone on the tripod. 3 minutes. "Looking at you, a heavy set might blow your knee out. We're filming for our sponsors." Go hit the leg press with the other soccer moms. Something cold and still passed behind Marcus's eyes for half a second, the same look he'd once given men across a dim room in a war zone. A look that said the only reason you're still breathing is because I'm allowing it. Then he glanced toward the office. Ruby was waving at him through the glass. The coldness melted away. Marcus chuckled, rubbed the back of his neck, and said, "No problem, guys." "Keep it up," he walked off. Behind him, Blake scoffed, "That's what I thought, beta energy." Marcus heard it. He didn't care. He collected his daughter and got mint chocolate chip ice cream, thinking the whole thing was over. He had no idea he'd just become their favorite target. A week passed and the tension didn't fade, it grew teeth. The twins had figured out something dangerous. This man wouldn't fight back, and in their content-hungry minds, that made him perfect. They needed a symbol for their alpha male videos, proof of the weak, soft modern man they loved to mock. Quiet, oversized hoodie Marcus fit the role perfectly. It came to a head on a Friday. The gym was packed, music thumping through the concrete walls. Ruby sat safely on a bench near the heavy bags, drawing a golden retriever with a box of crayons. Marcus wrapped his hands with slow precision and stepped up to the bag, working combinations with quiet, controlled focus. Pop, pop, thud. He didn't notice the tripod being set up 10 feet away. "Check out the lethal weapon over here," Blake called out, loud enough for the whole gym to hear. Marcus lowered his hands and turned. Blake and Brody stood there shirtless, sweat gleaming, Brody's phone recording on a gimbal, its red light glowing. "Look at this footwork," Blake said straight into the camera. "This is exactly what we talk about on stream. The modern man thinks he's a fighter because he can slap a leather bag. Put him in a real situation, he folds like a lawn chair." The gym went quiet. Weights froze mid-rep. The air turned thick. "Turn the camera off, Blake," Marcus said, unwrapping his hands, his face unreadable. "Did I hurt your feelings, Dad?" Blake stepped in close, towering over him. "I'm just educating my audience. Showing the difference between a real martial artist and a guy who watches fights on his couch. I'm not bothering you. Leave me alone." Brody circled for a better camera angle. "Prove it then. Light sparring. Let's see what those hands can do against a black belt." Marcus glanced past Blake's shoulder. Ruby had looked up from her drawing, her eyes wide with confusion and fear, not understanding why these loud men were being cruel to her father. Somewhere deep inside him, the old instinct screamed to be let loose. His mind ran the numbers in an instant: stance width, weight distribution, exposed angles. He could put both of them on the ground permanently in under 4 seconds. But Ruby was watching. If he unleashed what he really was, his daughter would see a monster, not a father. The police would get involved. His careful, quiet life would collapse. Real strength wasn't about knowing how to destroy, it was about knowing when not to. "I don't fight," Marcus said flatly, grabbing his bag and walking past them toward his daughter. That wasn't enough content for Blake. As Marcus passed, Blake shoved his shoulder hard, sending him stumbling into Ruby's bench. Her crayon box crashed to the floor, wax pieces scattering everywhere. Ruby gasped and shrank against the wall, lip trembling. The gym went dead silent. Even the twins' usual hangers-on looked away, uncomfortable. Marcus stood frozen, staring at the broken crayons, then at his daughter's frightened face, then at Blake. For one terrifying second, the mask slipped completely. His posture straightened, his shoulders squared, and his eyes turned into something so empty and cold that Blake actually flinched back a step. Then Marcus exhaled slowly, knelt down, and quietly began picking up the broken crayons. "That's right," Brody sneered, zooming the camera in. "Pick up your toys and go home." Marcus said nothing. He placed the crayon pieces into Ruby's hands, scooped her up, and walked out as the twins high-fived behind him, thrilled with their viral clip. In the car, buckling Ruby into her seat, His hands trembled not from fear, but from the sheer effort of holding everything in. "Daddy," Ruby asked softly, "why were those men so mad?" Marcus gripped the wheel until his knuckles went white. "They're not mad, sweetie. They're just confused about what makes someone strong." "Are you strong, Daddy?" He looked at her in the mirror. "I'm strong enough to know when to wait." But waiting was about to run out. By Monday, the clip, heavily edited to cut out the shoved daughter and broken crayons, had exploded online. Titled something like, "Fake Tough Guy Dad Backs Down from Real Fighters." It racked up hundreds of thousands of views and got shared across local community pages. Marcus didn't own a single social media account, but he didn't need one to feel the fallout. Parents at school avoided eye contact at drop-off. Walter called to apologize personally and offered to ban the twins for good. Marcus told him not to bother. The real breaking point came on a rainy Wednesday night. Marcus was at the kitchen table when his phone buzzed. The name on the screen, Derek. Derek Preacher Malone was built like a concrete block, a former teammate from Marcus's unit who now ran a tactical training facility out west. No hello, no small talk. "Tell me I didn't just watch a couple of spray-tan influencers punk the man who carried me out of a burning building overseas." Marcus sighed. "You saw the video." "Half my staff saw the video, Marcus. What the hell is going on? Since when do boys like that get to put their hands on you?" "Ruby was there, Derek. I'm not bringing that part of my life into hers. I buried that guy." "You don't bury who you are," Derek said, dead serious. "You just put him to sleep for a while. I get it, you're a dad first. But ask yourself something. What did Ruby learn that day? That bullies get away with it. That bad men just get to laugh and walk off." The words landed like a gut punch. Marcus looked across the room at Ruby's backpack by the door. He'd spent a decade standing between innocent people and men who wanted to hurt them. Was he really going to let his own daughter watch him play the victim? "What do you want me to do, Derek? Jump them in a parking lot? I'm not a thug." Derek laughed, low and dark. "You're a tactician, brother. You don't fight them in the shadows. You fight them where they think they're untouchable, in the light, on camera, where they can't hide behind an edit." The next day, on his lunch break, Marcus walked into Walter's office at the gym. I mean Marcus," Walter caught himself. "I'm serious, I'm pulling their memberships." "Don't," Marcus said, voice suddenly flat and cold. "I saw the flyer in the lobby. You're running a charity sparring tournament next month for the Children's Hospital." "Yeah, local amateur thing, kickboxing, grappling. The twins basically demanded I set it up so they could show off for their followers." "Why? Put my name on the bracket." Walter's eyes widened. "Marcus, those two are arrogant, but they've trained in real dojos since they were kids. I don't want you getting hurt trying to make a point." Marcus leaned over the desk, and for the first time, Walter saw something in his eyes that made him go quiet. "Just put my name on the bracket." 3 days later, when the matchups went up on the gym's digital board, whispers spread fast. Blake and Brody were stretching on the mats when a follower ran over pointing at the screen. Blake walked over and read it, heavyweight grappling division, first round, himself against Marcus Kane. Brody burst out laughing. "No way, the dad actually signed up, he wants to get humiliated on stream." Blake smiled, thin and cruel. "Perfect, I'm not just going to submit him. I'm going to make him beg on camera before I break his arm." What they didn't know was that 3 miles away, in a run-down, unair-conditioned gym run by a retired fighter, Marcus was stripping away the last layer of the soft civilian disguise. Combat shorts, no hoodie. In the dim light, the density of his real physique was almost frightening. A back built from years of hauling wounded men and heavy gear, a shoulder marked by an old, jagged scar. He didn't hit the bag like an athlete chasing highlight reels. Every strike carried the intent of a man trained to end fights in seconds, not points. For 4 weeks he trained before sunrise, 5-mile runs with a weighted vest, joint locks, chokes, limb control drills, everything adapted from his military training into the tournament's rulebook. He would play their game, but he'd play it with force they couldn't possibly comprehend. If you're enjoying this story so far, this is exactly the moment things start to turn. Because what happened at that tournament changed everything, and the twins never saw it coming. On tournament day, Iron Forge Athletics was packed. Bleachers pulled out, food trucks outside, a padded ring set up dead center. The Sullivan twins soaked in the attention, matching rash guards, entourage in tow, predicting a first-round knockout on camera. Marcus slipped in through the back in a plain black shirt, carrying a small duffel bag. No nerves, no anger, just quiet. Before locking his phone away, he glanced at the lock screen, a photo of Ruby. Then he zipped his bag shut. He was done waiting. The crowd of over 300 packed shoulder to shoulder around the mat. Blake worked the blue corner like a pay-per-view star, oiled up, thumping his chest for a live stream pulling in thousands of viewers. In the red corner, Marcus sat completely still on a folding chair, breathing in a slow 4-count rhythm, the same breathing technique he'd once used before jumping into hostile territory from the back of a military transport plane. Center of the mat, the referee, a no-nonsense veteran named Roy Hendricks, called out. Blake jogged over with a smug grin, not even bothering to look Marcus in the eye. Marcus stood and walked to the center, and for the first time, the crowd got a real look at him without the hoodie, the sheer size of his frame, the old scar on his shoulder. A murmur rippled through the room. No strikes, no eye gouges, no small joint attacks. Touch gloves if you want, Roy said. Blake scoffed, refusing to raise his hands. Let's just get this over with. Marcus didn't raise his hands either. He simply nodded. Fight! Blake exploded forward with a flashy flying triangle attempt, launching himself through the air for a highlight reel finish. It was the kind of move that looked great on camera and got people hurt in real fights. Marcus didn't flinch. He took a half step back, kept his base rock solid, and caught Blake midair like he weighed nothing. For a split second, Blake hung there, eyes going wide with panic, like he'd just flown into a concrete wall. Then Marcus slammed him flat onto the mat. The air left Blake's lungs in a violent gasp. Before Blake could even process what happened, Marcus had already driven a knee into his ribs and wrapped him up in a crushing scarf hold, dropping his full weight down like a hydraulic press. Blake's confidence disappeared instantly, replaced by raw panic. He couldn't breathe. He thrashed, but Marcus didn't budge an inch. You wanted an audience, Marcus said quietly, only Blake close enough to hear it. Now you have one. He isolated Blake's arm, trapped it, and pushed it right to the edge of real damage, not breaking it, just making Blake feel exactly how close he was. Blake's face went purple. All the swagger drained out of him in an instant. Tap, tap, tap. He slapped the mat frantically. Stop! Winner by submission, Roy shouted, rushing in. 42 seconds. Marcus stood up without a hair out of place, breathing completely normal, and walked back to his chair without a glance at the camera. Blake rolled onto his side, coughing, humiliated, tears mixing with sweat as the livestream captured every second of it. The crowd sat in stunned silence. Near the mat, Brody's phone slipped out of his hand and clattered to the floor. His face went pale watching his brother get carried off, wheezing. Their entire brand was built on the illusion that they couldn't be touched. If this stood, it would all come crashing down by nightfall. Hey, Brody screamed, jumping over the fencing onto the mat, pointing a shaking finger at Marcus. You and me right now, you just got lucky. Roy stepped between them. Son, that's not how the bracket works. I don't care about the bracket, Brody snapped, shoving the referee's arm aside. He rounded on Walter. Make the fight happen, or my brother and I pull our memberships and take half this gym with us. Before Walter could answer, Marcus stood up. Let him fight, he said calmly, walking back to the center of the mat, his eyes locked on Brody. "If he wants his lesson early, I'll give it to him." The crowd surged forward, phones raised. "You're dead, old man," Brody hissed, dropping into an aggressive stance. "Focus on your breathing," Marcus said quietly. "You're going to need it. Fight." Brody charged in with a wild overhand punch, a blatant foul in a grappling match, thrown with pure desperation. Marcus saw it coming from a mile away. He slipped inside the punch, clamped both hands around the back of Brody's neck, and yanked his head down hard. Off balance, Brody stumbled forward, and Marcus used the momentum to throw him flat onto his back with a clean hip sweep. The air blasted out of Brody's lungs. Before Brody could scramble away, Marcus dropped into a tight arm lock, pinning his shoulders to the mat, freezing him in place. Total helplessness. "This is the reality of violence, Brody," Marcus said, low and steady, his voice carrying to the silent crowd. "It's not a ring light, it's not a hashtag. It's the moment you realize someone else decides what happens to you next, and there's nothing you can do about it." Brody thrashed uselessly, trapped under a mountain of controlled force. "You go after people because you think being kind makes them weak," Marcus continued. "You mistake patience for cowardice. Let this be the last time you make that mistake." He applied just a fraction more pressure. A sharp, sickening pop echoed through the room, a warning, not a break. Brody screamed, I tap." "Stop, please," he shrieked, slapping wildly at Marcus's leg. Marcus let go instantly, rose to his feet and walked away without a word, without a glance at the roaring, stunned crowd. He grabbed his duffel bag and headed for the exit. The crowd parted for him in total silence. Near the back door, leaning against a stack of punching bags, stood Derek, arms crossed, a faint knowing smile under his beard. As Marcus passed, Derek gave him a sharp, respectful nod. Marcus nodded back. The wolf had been put back in its cage, but not before every predator in that gym learned exactly what they'd been circling. By the following weekend, the internet had completely flipped the story. The clip spread everywhere. And this time, there was no editing the truth out of it. Two grown men who'd built an entire brand bullying a quiet single dad had gotten dismantled in under a minute each. Sponsors quietly dropped Blake and Brody. Their followers disappeared by the thousands. Neither of them ever set foot in Iron Forge athletics again. On Monday evening, the sun dipped low over Denver, painting the parking lot gold. Marcus walked through the gym doors in his usual faded sweatpants and oversized hoodie, a small pink backpack slung over one shoulder. Through the office window, Ruby sat happily coloring a picture of a dragon. Walter looked up from his desk and smiled. "Hey, Marcus. Good to see you." "Hey, Walt," Marcus said, his voice back to its usual soft, warm rumble. He glanced at his daughter and smiled. "Just gonna hit the bag for a bit." Same as always. He wasn't chasing recognition. He wasn't trying to be a legend. He was just a father protecting his peace, and proving that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should least want to push. So what would you have done if you were in Marcus's shoes? Would you have kept quiet or stepped up sooner? Let me know in the comments and tell me where you're watching from tonight. If this story hit you right in the chest, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and share it with someone who loves seeing bullies get exactly what's coming to them.